Good afternoon and welcome to the May 12th meeting of the Charles County Board of Education. At this time, we need to go into an executive session, so I would entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Mrs. McGraw, did a motion for the board?
Yeah.
Make a motion for the board to meet in executive session as permitted by the Maryland Open Meetings Act, Section 3-305 and 3-103 of the General Provisions Article to discuss personnel matters, specifically concerning the superintendent's recommendations on certificated positions, negotiations concerning setting parameters for negotiations with the ACC and AFSCME, contract negotiations concerning matters related to the negotiation of contracts for transportation services, a litigation update concerning a lawsuit filed against the board and a state board appeal, administrative function matters concerning administrative assignments. Is there anything I need to add to that list?
Anyone? Okay, therefore, I need a motion to.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Who seconded that, please?
Abel.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the meeting, go into an executive session. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Mrs. Abel?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown? Ms. Battle Lockhart? Mrs. Battle Lockhart?
I'm sorry, my mute wouldn't unmute me.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
And McGraw, yes. Motion carries. We will now move into executive session. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the May 12th, 2020 meeting of the Charles County Board of Education. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Let's begin our meeting with a report from Dr. Hill.
Good afternoon, board members. Although State Superintendent Karen Salmon has closed Maryland's public school buildings for the rest of the school year, our teachers are still teaching, children are still learning, and staff is working to finalize our graduation plans, close out the school year, and explore possible summer programs and plans for when we reopen in the fall. Later today, I'll give a report about our graduation ceremonies. We recently added an in-person option for students after getting updated guidance from law enforcement. While COVID-19 restrictions keep us from having traditional ceremonies for the class of 2020, we're providing reasonable options while observing safety guidelines. Schools delivered yard signs to seniors on Friday, and the feedback from that has been terrific. And this is just one more way we're trying to celebrate the accomplishments of our seniors. Charles County Public Schools middle and elementary schools will recognize the promotion of their 8th and 5th graders by mailing a promotion certificate to each child, as well as run a rolling list of promoted students at the top of each school's website, starting the week of June 8th. Pending state and local Board of Education approval of our 5-day waiver request, the last day of school for students will be June 11th. During the next several weeks, we'll announce how we will collect packet work, how students can pick up their personal belongings left at school, and return any school property they might still have. Teachers will post elementary school grades on Synergy by June 15th, and CCPS will mail middle and high school report cards on June 22nd, as we've noted in the parent handbook calendar. Our Food and Nutrition Services team will update the board later in today's meeting. They have done a fantastic job over the past 2 months, providing thousands of meals every weekday. As of Friday, the unofficial count of meals served since we closed is 210,133 meals. As we wrap up the school year, Food and Nutrition Services folks are already planning how to transition into the summer Lunch on Us program. Online pre-K and kindergarten registration continues. We'll open general registration for new students on June 15th. Information is available on our website at ccboe.com. As a reminder, parents of 5th and 8th graders need to provide proof of residence to their child's school. Information can be uploaded through Synergy or mailed to the school. We do not finalize student schedules for next school year without proof of residence. Despite closing our school buildings in mid-March, our employees have not stopped serving children or our community. I'm proud of the way our teachers and staff have stepped up to ensure children have access to learning, food, technology, mental health, and other services during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm grateful for everything our employees have accomplished as they serve through this crisis to make sure we provide for the academic and social needs of our children. Thank you for your support, Mrs. McGraw. Appreciate my opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hill. The next item on our agenda is correspondence by members of the board. Would you raise your hand if you have any correspondence to share today? Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay. I did attend the MAVE Trust Edge Board Service Academy, and it was an excellent workshop. I also attended the Board of Ed, Joint Board of Ed and Commissioners meeting along with my colleagues. That's all I have to share.
Thank you. The board members, Ms. Lockhart.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to share, in addition to what Ms. Brown has said, I had an opportunity to go visit the lunch sites last week. I had an opportunity to go visit Indian Head, McDonough, and Westlake. I thought it would be pertinent of me to take an opportunity to take a risk, a small risk due to my daughter being high risk herself, to go out and say thank you to those that have been working hard through this whole entire time, and just to let them know how much I appreciate them making a sacrifice for us and for our community. So that was pretty fun. We had some long conversations, and that's when I realized how short of a time frame, that time frame goes really fast. So I didn't get to see as many as I would like, but definitely shared my sentiments on my appreciation for them and for teacher appreciation as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lockhart. Anyone else? Mr. Lucas.
Thank you very much, Chairman McGraw. I would just like to say thank you to everyone in the system for the continued fantastic job they're doing in trying to meet the needs of all students. And if I could just take 5 seconds for all our graduates, I don't know if this comes through, but the class of 2020, good on you. You obviously will always remember this, and good luck in the future. And not just for our high school graduates, but our college graduates as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Other correspondence? All right, Ms. Abel, was that a hand up? No? Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you very much. Then at this time, we'd like to hear from our Education Association President, Mrs. Linda McLaughlin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Linda McLaughlin, and I am the president of the Education Association of Charles County. On Friday, May 1st, the EACC and CCPS reached a tentative agreement on the one article that was open for negotiations, Article 15, salary. The EACC bargaining team members volunteered many hours of their time and worked exceedingly hard to represent all members at the table. This year, for the first time in the history of the EACC, an EACC member and certificated CCPS employee was assigned as the chief negotiator and bargained on behalf of all EACC members. Leslie Schreck, resource teacher at La Plata High School, was that chosen voice at the bargaining table, and she did an amazing job. Our incredible EACC bargaining team members are Leslie Schreck, chief negotiator from La Plata High School, Dan Bessick, our co-chief negotiator, EACC MSEA Uniserv director, Andrew Schanberger, bargaining team chair from Jennifer Elementary School, Sonia Blue, principal, Mattawoman Middle School, Jacob Girding, media specialist at Higdon Elementary School, Matt Howard, social studies teacher at St. Charles High School, Darnell Lewis Russell, vice principal at Lackey High School, Kelly Perry, special education teacher at Stoddard Middle School, Kristen Shields, director of Title I at Starkey Administration Building, Linda Stocks, PPW at Davis Middle School, Linda McLaughlin, ex officio EACC president, and Courtney Dowling, our negotiation support EACC MSEA Uniserv director. We would like to thank Amy Holstein and CCPS's bargaining team for your hard work and commitment as we work through the process. We're currently holding informational meetings for our members on the TA as part of our ratification process. A vote will follow. Of course, the ability for the TA to be realized is contingent upon sufficient funding from the Charles County Commissioners. Thank you to our EACC members who spoke at the Commissioners' virtual budget hearing May 5th, Sarah Miller from Billingsley, Veronica Golden from Gale Bailey Elementary, and Tangi Scales from Gale Bailey Elementary School. We all spoke with passion and fervor and urged the commissioners to invest in our students, schools, and future. 471 comments and emails were sent. That's an updated number. And 40 or more voicemails were left on the public record by EACC members, AFSCME members, and community members in support of fully funding Dr. Hill's budget request. Hopefully, the commissioners listen to our collective insistence that fully funding education should remain a priority in Charles County and vote accordingly. May 4th through the 8th was Teacher Appreciation Week. Our EACC membership committee co-chairs Kimberly Williams from Billingsley Elementary School and Tina Pagel from Mitchell Elementary School created a variety of activities for our members that have been postponed. We at EACC appreciate all our members and believe that every day should be Educator Appreciation Day. Vivian Green said, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning how to dance in the rain." Our educators continue to work tirelessly to provide instruction and support on Teams and connection via emails and calls. There are a million ways our educators are going the extra mile to make sure our students know they are valued, missed, and loved. The workload is daunting. It is a surreal and difficult process, but together we have struggled and persevered, and we will prevail because we are a community. We are saddened by the governor's veto of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, but hopeful that the Maryland legislature will override the veto during their next session. There are many questions about the guidelines in MSDE's Maryland Recovery Plan for Education for the reopening of schools at some point. EACC stands willing and ready to collaborate with CCPS to help ensure that the recovery plan here in Charles County represents the considerations of all stakeholders. Congratulations to the class of 2020. Congratulations to all of us for making it through this difficult time so far. Like Dr. Seuss said, you're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. And step with great care and great tact. Remember that life's a great balancing act. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McLaughlin. Next, we'll hear from our American Federation of State and County Municipal Employees President, Sarah Birch.
Good afternoon. I am Sarah Birch, President of AFSCME Local 2981. Since March 13th, 2020, one thing that hasn't happened to me is being bored. I'm at work every day, have plenty to do, and go home and sew mats. Proceeds from the mats go to Southern Maryland Food Bank in AFSCME's name. Two very important AFSCME events are coming up. They are ratification of the 2021 contract and elections of new officers for Local 2981. On May 7th, 2020, the AFSCME Salary Committee voted to present to the members the proposed contract for 2021. Members will vote at the end of May or beginning of June for ratification of the contract. Emails will be sent to membership explaining the process for ratification. Ratification will be completely virtual. Elections will be done virtually also, with emails being sent out with instructions to proceed ballots. Only dues-paying members are allowed to vote. If you are interested in joining, please contact sbirch@ccboe.com and an application will be sent. Don't forget, having a voice in your contract, e-board, are some of the advantages of being an ASME member. Free college is another advantage. Local 2981 has 2 members receiving AA degrees this May, and several members working towards that goal. Tracy Newbold and Wanda Woodland are the members receiving their degrees. Let's give them a virtual round of applause for their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Birch. Next on our agenda is our report from our student board member, Mr. Woods.
Thank you. Good
Sure.
afternoon, everyone. Yesterday kicked off the start of AP testing season. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the College Board has opted to provide virtual exams this year. In place of the typical 3-hour-long sessions, the exams have been condensed down to 45 minutes, with the content material only extending to concepts students have learned by March. I wish all of our CCPS students luck over the next 3 weeks as they study and prepare to receive 3s, 4s, and 5s on their AP exams. I would also like to thank our AP teachers for their extra continued support in providing virtual review sessions and additional materials to help their students succeed this year amid a new testing format. On April 28th, I got the opportunity to chair the CCPS Class of 2020 Graduation Student Advisory Council alongside Dr. Hill. We met with 22 seniors from across our 7 high schools to discuss alternative solutions to our traditional commencement ceremonies should the school closure extend beyond May 15th. All discussion was collected to assist CCPS staff in determining a finalized plan for Class of 2020 exercises. We talked about numerous senior-related events and traditions, such as graduation ceremonies, prom, project graduation, and more. All CCPS recently unveiled plans to pursue a virtual graduation this year, with an in-person option being added this week. All ceremonies will now be aired on June 11th, and I am extremely proud of the students who served on this council, with them contributing thoughtful and honest ideas and feedback. Their concerns and voices were important in the process, and I am so thankful for Dr. Hill for extending me this opportunity. Alas, 11 months later, today marks my last official board meeting with the Charles County Board of Education. Well, oh my God. Well, I've always been looking forward to graduating and starting the next chapter in my life. I've always dreaded this day. This past year, serving on the Board of Ed has been filled with laughter, successes, failures, and most importantly, hard work. Last year during election season, I decided I wanted to run for SMOB after participating in an education unit in my AP Lang class. I did not run for myself or just to add another position to my resume. I ran for the students. After being in student government for 6 years, I quickly realized that not enough students were involved in their own education. We have always had a student member, yet whenever the position was brought up, students would question what that entirely was. My whole term has been about reshaping this position and inspiring students to become more civically engaged in their lives. I ran on a platform centered around time. Whether we are ready or not, time is always moving forward, and there is no way to get back past time. That motto stuck with me my entire term, as I became the first SMOB from Thomas Stone in over 10 years and started actively working throughout my term to ensure I was representing the students of Charles County. I got to revamp an entirely new SMOB advisory council with student representation from all 7 high schools. And while we were not able to get many of the events I'd hoped for this year, the foundation for the council next year is strong, and I'm so proud to be leaving it to the next student member. I got to listen firsthand to countless hours of board presentations and information, and give the student opinion on educational matters. I've gotten to learn about the phenomenal mental health services and initiatives available in Charles County, and about educational policy affecting school boards statewide, and the socioeconomic issues impacting our students daily. Not to mention that each board meeting, I got to hear about the jaw-dropping accomplishments and achievements our students and staff have done, and I got to give them just a little bit of the recognition they truthfully deserve. However, this position has also allowed for me to voice new perspectives and opinions, whether it be about societal obstacles against minority students and how we operate to open more opportunities for them, or about how dealing with student discipline in new ways that reinforce positive behavior in students, not tear them down. I've been told by some people that I never seem to stray away from my microphone, which I'm glad that observation is very evident. Most importantly this year, I've gotten to experience this board and our school system in a new way. Whether it be from the conversations and meetings I've had with Dr. Hill, to collaborating and working with fellow board members on policies indirectly affecting students, to visiting students this year in their schools. I've learned so much about education through simple, meaningful conversations and interaction. I've learned that education is a prominent factor in a child's life, and that sometimes it can be the great equalizer. Our students and staff are among the most hardworking and resilient individuals I've ever met in my life. I am forever blessed to be in a position of power where I get to learn every day while still working to create a tangible impact on students' lives. This year, elections for a next year's student member of the board are being conducted virtually through the Charles County Association of Student Councils. The election features 3 candidates. They are Ian Hurd from La Plata High School, who also currently serves as student liaison, Hiba Khan from McDonough High School, and Faison Sadiq from Westlake High School, who currently serves as alternate student member. All 3 are fantastic contenders and all have a focus on students at heart, and I'm very excited to see who wins the race. I just simply would like to thank my fellow board members and the rest of the CCPS team here at the Board of Ed for welcoming me in and being such hardworking and open colleagues. It was very easy to see that despite beliefs or other matters, we're all here to create the world-class education that our students, staff, and community all deserve. I'd like to personally thank Dr. Hill for the ample amount of opportunity you have given me this year to just simply do my job in representing students. Your words of encouragement and advice have meant a great deal to me, and I thank you for your service to students. I want to thank my SMOB Advisory Council, SGA, and my Thomasstone High School community for being my rock. The support and care that you all have given me has changed me more than words can describe. And I especially want to thank my class VP, Mr. Lamb, for being one of the most inspiring and, dare I say, coolest educators in my life, and for providing me with guidance and reassurance daily. And finally, I would like to thank my family for always supporting me and for allowing me to branch out. I'm so proud of my term and the work that's been accomplished this year. This position, in my eyes, is one of the most important to have in a school system. Students deserve to have their opinions voiced and heard in this decision-making of their education. And I'm so glad to have seen such a spike in student outreach this year. More kids are starting to become interested in education and have an interest in what is impacting them. This lifestyle of being involved and informed is a skill and staple that I hope sticks with all students. I know all the lessons I have learned will stick with me as I head off to James Madison University this fall, pursuing a major in vocal music education and minoring in honors interdisciplinary studies. I appreciate all the well wishes that I've received. And as always, if students need me, I'll be in my seat until June 9th. And I love all of Charles County and wish you all a happy May. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. I just want to say you have served the children, the students, and Charles County Public Schools in a very mature and professional manner. It has been an honor to work along with you this past year, and I know that you are destined for greatness. We look forward to reading about you in the newspaper and hoping that you'll be returning to Charles County one day to help educate our students as well.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. All righty. Next on our agenda is Dr. Hill. A report, please, about graduation.
Thank you, Mrs. McGraw. Before I begin my report, report on graduation. DeJuan, congratulations on, as you said, reshaping the student member of the board position. Congratulations on the outreach that you've done and visiting all of your fellow schools to meet your classmates. If you are any indicator of the leadership that the world is getting ready to have, then our future is bright. And we're going to depend upon leaders like you to help us through the conditions in which we live. So I do look forward to, I tweeted this to you recently, to hiring you, come back to Charles County Public Schools and teach with us. Our students of the future need role models like you. So thank you for everything that you've done. Mrs. McGraw, board members, members of the public, I want to just briefly review the process that we've gone through to come to the graduation model that we've reached. As DeJuan said, over the last month or so, I've met repeatedly with my operations team. I've met with high school principals, and I've met with members of the class of 2020 to talk about how we can justify this, a true celebration of their accomplishments in the conditions under which we're currently living. We came up with 3 options originally. The first option was that students would be able to come to school basically by appointment in very small groups with a very limited number of family members, and they would be given an opportunity to walk across the stage, have their picture taken, and then exit, and then another small group of students would come in. That was one option. A second option that the groups came up with was that families would kind of do a drive-up graduation where we would parade cars through the high school parking lots. The principal would be out on curbside behind a table, bestowing a graduation diploma cover to the car that pulled up. The graduate would reach out, take their diploma cover, and drive on. That was second option. The third option was a completely virtual option, where we would utilize the Life Touch yearbook photos of our seniors that we currently have, as well as an additional photo that we would ask seniors to send us of themselves, perhaps with family members in their cap and gown, so that we could put both of those together into a video and ultimately produce a graduation video. So that was the third option. I took all 3 options actually to leaders in our community. First to the health department to get their input on each of the 3 options to guide us on which was the most safe option to follow. Secondly, to the Maryland State Police Barracks, spoke with a lieutenant there at length about the 3 options. And then finally to Sheriff Troy Berry, spoke with him about all 3 options. After consulting with those 3 major agencies in our community, it became very clear to me that the only option at that time that we could go with in a manner that was safe and protected the health of our graduates as well as their families was the completely virtual option. And that's why early last week, I put out information to our community that that would be the option we were going with for graduation. Late last week, late Thursday night, early Friday morning, we got some updated guidance regarding non-essential travel and the fact that travel to a graduation ceremony would no longer be defined as non-essential. We were allowed to add an option to our virtual graduation plan. So now what we're going with is what I'm thinking of as a hybrid model, where we still have our original model of the virtual graduation for families who aren't comfortable going out into public and being in that kind of environment. We still will welcome them sending us pictures or a picture of their graduate in cap and gown, and we'll put that together in a video, which will create an entire virtual graduation ceremony. And then we were able to add a second option for families who are comfortable. So high school principals will be reaching out to families tomorrow morning via a letter to say, here is how you could have an appointment, come to the school by appointment in very small groups, and we will allow the graduate to march across the stage and have a photo taken of them walking across the stage And then we'll include that photo in the video compilation of the class of 2020 graduation. So it's been a journey getting to where we are. Our goal has always been to properly recognize the members of the class of 2020, of whom we are so very proud, under the conditions in which we're living right now. So I feel very good about what we're doing. I am very thankful to our central office staff and high school principals in their flexibility and their creativity. Their ideas have been amazing, and where we can fulfill their ideas, we definitely are doing so, but we're going to do so in a way that is safe. So Mrs. McGraw, that's the overview that I have for how we've gotten to where we are when it comes to our graduation plans. I'm excited for what we're doing now. I think that the result is going to be very memorable for the class of 2020.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Are there any questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much for that explanation. Next will be a report.
Ms. McGraw,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Jawan had his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see
No,
your
you're fine.
hand.
You're fine. It was a question for Dr. Hill. Because I've gotten this question. For graduation ceremonies, when they're aired on June 11th, are they all being aired at 7 a.m. or is that just when they're gonna like start streaming like one by one?
So as your favorite pop stars would say, and even saying pop stars is dating me, graduations will drop at 7 a.m. on June 11th, but they will be available over and over and over repeatedly, ultimately be available for download from our website.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, doesn't look like that. Thank you then. Mrs. Holstein, you have a report for us.
I do. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so pleased to share with you today an update on our distance learning plan. And before I start my report, though, I just have to take a moment to congratulate our teachers, our administrators, our students, and I have to say our rock star parents who have taken on this challenge of distance learning and made it a positive learning experience. I've spent the past 2 weeks spending part of each day observing Teams lessons. And I have to tell everyone that I'm just inspired by the level of participation and learning going on in our county. We're providing a multi-layer approach that, although not the same as being in the classroom every day, is just pretty amazing. From online lessons that are covering 150 different content areas in the secondary schools to county-created lessons focusing on critical content in elementary, and our students are learning. At the end of this week, 65 additional courses will be offered through paper packets. Our content specialists have just done a tremendous job coordinating all the opportunities for students without connectivity. So what does our county look like in terms of how we have connected with our students? Based on data that I've collected last week, 82.1% of students are working online, participating in Teams lessons, learning through Apex curriculum, and accessing additional resources such as virtual field trips and enrichment opportunities. 15.4% of our students are learning by completing paper packets. Some are solely completing packets, while others are choosing to complete the paper packets while also participating in Teams lessons for additional support. I'm very proud to say, although not giving up, that 2.9% of our students are not right now accessing available learning opportunities. As I said, though, we are not giving up. PPWs have logged over 4,640 hours contacting families, delivering packets, helping connect families to school, and making community agency referrals. This week, they're driving around to homes and placing door tags on students who have not reconnected with school. And we're starting to get some positive results, and we hope to decrease that number. Our special population students are receiving additional opportunities to support them. As distance learning it presents a bigger challenge for them. We purchased an additional program for special education students called Goal Book to supplement our teams and APEX lessons, so students are able to complete activities focusing specifically on their goals and objectives. Students in our Achieve and SOAR programs are receiving individually prepared packets to meet their needs if the regular curriculum is not appropriate. We're also utilizing a specially designed component of APEX called tutorials to better support our special education students. CCPS is offering teletherapy to students who receive speech language, occupational, and physical therapy services, and we are actually scheduling phone interventions for our reading recovery students. ELL students are offered access to supplemental English language development lessons that are provided both in print and digital formats. Parents also have access to a 24-hour Spanish hotline, which is meant to support parents who are experiencing difficulties understanding countywide communications. In addition, we added another layer to provide language line telephonic interpretation services to schools to communicate with families whose home language is not Spanish. Our system is also concerned with social emotional well-being of our kids. We have been providing counseling and mental health services via a call-in line where CCPS parents can call and speak with a school psychologist to receive immediate help concerning their children's behavioral and social emotional concerns. In addition, school counselors are using a telecounseling platform that allows for virtual contact with both parents and students. We've also continued our partnership with Tri-County Youth Service Bureau. So what's next for us? We will be focusing now on finishing out the fourth quarter and addressing fourth quarter report cards, as well as articulation plans. Seniors will finish on May 20th, which will allow time for grades to be documented and quality points calculated so students can receive a final transcript and GPA. All other students will have their report cards, posted in Parent View in middle June. In addition to grades, staff will be working diligently to articulate students to the next grade level and finish online scheduling for next year. Although we are uncertain what schools will look like in the fall, we want to be proactive in planning for an efficient articulation of students so that we're ready. In terms of final grades, you have suspended Board Policy 6431, which addresses student eligibility. We're asking today for your direction on your long-term intent so we can notify students on their June report card as far as their eligibility status goes. Our recommendation is to continue to suspend the policy so all students are eligible in the fall. We know that if permitted, sports and extracurricular activities will be essential in helping students reconnect with school. For any community member that would like more information on all we're offering, because I know I said a lot in our distance learning plan, please go to ccboe.com and just search for our continuity of learning plan. All of the additional resources, everything that we have to offer in distance learning is offered there as a resource to parents and students. Ms. McGraw, before I finish though, I just have to say that I've been working for the school system for 32 years, and I've certainly had many proud moments. It's been a wonderful career for me, but I have to say that watching our community and the leaders in our school system, our teachers, our administrators, our instructional assistants, everyone coming together with our parents and our community, rising to the challenge of educating our students in this new way with all the stress that's going on with the current health pandemic has truly been one of the most inspiring. I have to say, I have never been more proud to say that I work for Charles County Public Schools. We appreciate everyone, and we appreciate all of your support so much, because decisions like graduation are so difficult because we are trying to do our very best to keep everyone safe, but also recognize some amazing students. So as everyone has said, congratulations to the class of 2020. We are going to do our best to celebrate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Holstein. So I heard you say in the midst of an excellent presentation. Thank you very much, because it was extremely thorough, and I learned a lot of today as well about all the efforts that are being made by everyone across the county, across the school system rather. So are you asking us to make a decision on the eligibility? Would you like for us to be able to make a decision on eligibility for the fall today?
Yes, Ms. McGraw. So as Mr. Schwartz has shared, that each board meeting that you're discussing continuing suspending the policies, but we are looking for direction to see if it would be the intent of the board to suspend all the way through to the fall, so that we can indicate on the students' report cards that they will be eligible for fall sports and extracurricular, if that's the board's wish.
Mr. Schwartz, can we discuss that now, or do we need to look at that under new business?
You can discuss that now.
All right, board input. Comments?
Jenny, this is Todd.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure that if this happens, just remind that as we move in of course, a very different direction moving forward, that it could be adjusted in the future to be different. So this is not a standard thing. So I just want to make sure the language is going to say for this limited time, or due to, you know, the season of what we're going through.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So can we take a vote now, or do we have to wait for that as well?
You can wait for the vote until later. But
Okay.
the understanding would be that the staff can proceed if that vote is positive, that the policy would be suspended through the fall season so that students can be eligible currently.
Okay.
That would be
Is
a
there-
later.
And to be clear, Mrs. McGraw, this is just policy 6431,
Yes.
just the eligibility. All of the other suspensions of policies would be revisited monthly by the board.
Yes. Okay. Are there any other comments by board members at this time?
Yeah, I have one question for Amy.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious, because of, my background, did the State Board of Cosmetology do any amendments to the practical tests for those that are completing that particular program, were due to complete the program this year?
Yeah, yes, I believe they did. They've suspended the actual practicum. And if the board wishes, I could send that out in an update as to all the CTE programs and how each program has been affected.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, I think we would like that.
Sure, I'd be
Please.
glad to do
Thanks.
that. All the work-based portion of the programs has been suspended, but students will not be held will not have any harm because of that.
But I'm specifically speaking on their final, like when he goes, yeah, that's part I'm talking about. Okay.
Yes, I absolutely will share that. I'll share that for all the programs.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
This is Mike Heim. Can I add something regarding eligibility?
Yes, sir.
Just please keep in mind, if everything goes somewhat as planned with the first grading period for high school students, the end of the first marking period falls before the end of the sports season in the fall. You usually have some eligibility issues at the end of the ninth grade or at the end of the first quarter with some students as playoffs begin for some fall sports.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Holstein, you're through. Do you have anything else to add?
Yes, ma'am. I'm finished. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, then we'd like to hear from Ms. Charmaine Thompson, who's our Chief of Technology.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman McGraw, Vice Chairman Wilson, board members, Superintendent Kim Hill, and staff. Since schools were ordered closed on March 13th, 2020, the technology department has been extremely busy transitioning our entire student, staff, and teacher population to online teaching and learning, as well as working remotely from home. I thought I'd take this opportunity to just give you a quick overview of all the work that went on in the background since that occurred. We started out putting out a survey with the help of the Office of Accountability to our students, as far as, and parents, as far as their technology access at home. We also surveyed our teachers as well to get a good kind of baseline as far as how many laptops students need and what their technology Wi-Fi needs were at home. To date, our computer analysts prepared over 7,400 laptops for students, 326 laptops for our teachers, and 51 laptops for our staff, pardon me. And in that work, I'd like to publicly acknowledge the warehouse and mailroom staff for their help in receiving and distributing a lot of this technology equipment, such as the bags, as well as headsets. Some of the tools we provided our staff to work remotely from home were virtual private network in order to access their specialized drives, as well as WebEx, the virtual conferencing tool we're using now. Some of the tools we provided teachers in order to teach and learn at home, as well for our students, was Microsoft Teams. We have to date over 14,000 Teams pages currently being utilized by our teachers and staff. We also, because of all the tools we were putting out, we needed to create some type of web support. So we created a web help desk for our staff. Through the web help desk, we've solved over 2,500 help desk tickets for our staff. We also put together a technology SharePoint site, which was more catered to our teachers. That site has been visited by over 1,900 times. There, we've developed quick reference guides for how to use Microsoft Teams and some of the other technology tools they have access to. With the assistance of the Department of the Office of Communication, we had a technology section on ACTS CCPS that was specifically for the public, our parents and our students, to not only ask for technology support or to request another laptop. We also, in collaboration with the Staff Development Office, put together virtual training opportunities for our teachers to learn how to utilize Teams. We utilize WebEx to do that. To date, we've put through about 26 webinars for teachers. Some 1,400 have participated. We have facilitators from our teachers that did some of the facilitation, as well as librarians here at Charles County Public Schools. We also partner with professors at the University Systems of Maryland in coordination with Maryland Center for Computer Education instructors to help facilitate some of these WebEx sessions for our teachers. In coordination with the Office of Safety and Security, we also were able to widen the Wi-Fi accessibility in some of our school parking lots. And we're continuing to expand that and add on to that possibility in some of our schools. And lastly, we also were able to donate some of our used iPads to the Hospice House and Sage Point to allow their residents to communicate with their families since they were quarantined and could not have visitors. I basically just also want to publicly thank every single one of my technology staff for the long hours they put in, for the hard work. Anything that was asked of them, they did it with a smile. And I just want to publicly thank them for all the work that they put forth and still doing to distribute laptops to support teachers and staff, anything that they did. I just want to say thank you. And we couldn't have done it without their help. And thank you to you all for giving me this opportunity to give you an update on the work that we've been doing. So that concludes my report, Chairman McGraw.
I just want to say, and I see Ms. Battle Lockhart clapping, because I will say on behalf of the board, thank you so much. You guys have waded through those uncharted waters in an outstanding manner. So we're very grateful to you for all the work that you've done in leading your department as well, because they couldn't have done it without you, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Mr. Heim, you have a report for us?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. With me, I also have Steve Andrews, our Director of Planning and Construction. There's a couple offices down the hallway from me, so we'll do our best to make sure that we are not stepping over each other. Normally, we would be each other under the table, but obviously, with social distancing, we don't have that opportunity. So again, we will be putting these two items together. So our first item is information item on project status update. The second item is a report item on the educational master facilities plan.
Mr. Heim?
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, am I the only one?
You keep breaking up. It's difficult for us to hear you.
I'm going to go ahead and let Steve Andrews take over.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Superintendent and board members. As Mr. Heim was mentioning, we have two items for you today. First off is the informational item on the project status report, which should be uploaded to board docs. And secondly is the report item on the educational facilities master plan. So I'll start with the project status update. For the most part, even though we've been experiencing this health crisis, we have been proceeding with construction. There have been some impacts, but not significant, especially when you look at most of the actual construction projects that are going on. Our two big ones, which are Stoddard and Eva Turner, have contractors who have implemented social distancing protocols and have shared that with us. So they are working in the way that is acceptable per the guidelines. Also, most of our architects and engineers, most of our design professionals are all working remotely. They're working from home, not necessarily from their offices. They're not coming to the job sites. Everything is done virtually, whether it be a design meeting or a progress meeting. And this has presented some challenges. So I'll start talking just briefly. Mike, do you want to talk at all about the Stoddard, or do you want me to go ahead and do that?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can anybody say something else? Speak a little bit more, please. Mr. Heim.
With Stoddard, site work continues with getting water.
No, you keep breaking up. Back to Mr. Andrews. I'm sorry.
Okay, so as Mr. Heim was starting to say, Stoddard Middle School has been progressing. We have been working to do the new water lines and electrical conduits and stuff in place. Footings are being poured with the expectation of steel erection for columns by the end of the month of May. So this, as you will recall, project is a phase-one occupied renovation. Contractor has to build the new area, the new 3-story addition to move the students into before we can start with the renovation. There are some site things that are going on that have to happen around that addition. And with the opportunity now, they are working to do some more of the site work ahead of opening next school year. The next project would be Eva Turner. Eva Turner is a different situation. Obviously, those students are moved out completely. They're at the transition school. So the contractor has complete control of that site. They are moving along very well. They are actually fairly closed up with all the masonry. They'll be working with the brick soon. They've been installing all sorts of conduits and plumbing, All the concrete slab work inside is done. The roofing is actually, it had to be done, and the roofing is being installed now. We've been meeting with them about the envelope, which is the area, the whole wall section is actually considered the envelope, but the area in between the brick and the masonry, there are several things that have to happen there, and they've been working on that. We've had some coordination meetings with them this week. So things are progressing very well with that job site. Additionally, we started construction at Matthew Henson Middle School about 2 weeks ago. This is a project that is twofold. Number one, both of these thanks to county government. One is a site work piece, which several years ago the county gave us a multi-year site work project. This is the last year of that funding. We're actually using that to adjust some of the parking at the front of the building because we're actually pulling the front area out a little further, and we're adding an addition. So this is the second part of this project. This comes from the security project that the county approved. So we're putting about 1,100 square foot addition on the front of the building. If you are familiar with the building, when you drive up, the front entry that you see is where you go in by the gym, which feels like the front of the building. Instead, the front entry is actually all the way down to the left-hand side. What this does is builds that entry at that front location by the gym, which would then move the front office to that space. So it's about 1,100 square feet of new building, and then about 1,000 to 1,100 square feet of renovation in that same location. The site work and the interior demolition and some plumbing work inside is all begun and is ongoing. We're working to get everything we can to have that ready to start the coming school year. Additionally, we have just received pricing for significant work for the secure entry vestibule or the guided entry vestibule at Pickawaxen, and that will be starting hopefully in the next 2 weeks. We have several others that are out to bid right now, which include Gale Bailey, Higdon, Mitchell, and TC Martin, as well as some additional upgrades that we want to do at Daniel of St. Thomas Jennifer. We will have pricing in on those by the end of the month. So there's a number of things that we've got going on, as well as the McDonough High School dance fit out room, so that that program can be ready to start this coming school year. You want to come around and talk? And Mike actually came in here. I'm gonna let him come around so he can talk a little bit.
Okay, good.
Apologize for the violation of social distancing there for a moment. Other things that have gone on during this period of time within our maintenance department, we're in the process of replacing the fire panel at Gale Bailey, replaced the chiller at Barnhart Elementary School, which is the original chiller to the school that opened in 1994. And we also replaced the cooling tower at Matawan, which was the original cooling tower at Matawan, which opened in 1995. So as you get from what Steve had been discussing, here, teleworking is not much of an option for the folks in planning, construction, and maintenance because, we have to continue the work with our projects, and also anything with maintenance we have to address as those things arises. The next thing we want to talk about is the Educational Facilities Master Plan, which is due July 1st. That's a report item, and that's one of several documents that we have to submit to the state as part of our annual CIP request to the state, along with the comprehensive maintenance plan and the verification of the 10-year enrollment projections for what the state puts out compared to our 10-year projections. So at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Steve Andritz to talk about that in case you have any questions. That was uploaded to Board Docs last week.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Heim. So as was mentioned, this is the report item. You will have an action item in June for a beginning of July submission. The information has been updated with information from our folks in instruction as to any information that pertains to programs that have changed or offerings that are slightly different. I'm not going to go through here word by word, page by page. That would take too much for you guys. But the big items obviously have to do with the enrollment projections, as Mr. Heim mentioned, which are adjusted. They do show that there is growth and where we see we're going. If you looked at the charts, which are on, the spreadsheets that are on labeled pages 14 and 15, they show you a school by school, year by year state rated capacity number and projected enrollment and where we are high and low as to over or under. Additionally, behind that is project schedules to show you when things might be coming available. And then the last 2 pages are the systemic projects or renovation of mechanical systems and things of that nature, roofs, as to where we'd be working on those. We have not heard back from the state, from Maryland Department of Planning, about our state rated capacities that we sent to them. We're waiting. We've asked them again about that. We're hopeful that we'll get an answer that we can actually incorporate those for you for this document when it's ready to be published for July. One other comment I would like to add, as we talk through the agenda and things that have been going on, when we talk about the process and where we've been going through and how we're still working, as Mr. Heim mentioned, we are experiencing some delays with some of the design folks or some of the reviews we're getting from the state. As everybody is working in different locations, it's taking time to get these things figured out, especially with the stop and starts that we've had with school closures. We've been able to fill in small gaps, but not necessarily take advantage of the fact that we've been out of school since March. So we have capitalized on small opportunities for some select demolition or asbestos removal, but we have not been able to get full steam going until school is actually canceled. So I just want to make you aware that those are things that we have been struggling with, but we are moving forward with all of the projects that we talked about before. So with that, I would open it up if there are any questions for us. You have something else? Mr. Heim wanted one more thing to mention, so we'll switch chairs again.
All right, thanks for bearing with us. If there are no questions, I would like to say a few additional things. I'd like to thank a number of staff within supporting services for their dedication and hard work over the last couple of months as we've gone through this so-called new normal. First of all, I'd like to thank April Murphy, who's our supervisor of operations, and her staff, which includes the building service workers. First of all, they went through the first week and a half of our school closures and cleaned over and sanitized over 4 million square feet of buildings throughout the county, and did that without any second guessing, questioning. Work with a group of people behind the scenes. You ask them what needs to be done, where they need to be, and what time, and they show up and they do what is asked. So it's a great group of people that I'm fortunate to work with on a daily basis. Beyond the cleaning and sanitizing of buildings, which has continued since that first 2 weeks after we went through all the schools, we've had operations staff and building service staff involved in delivering PPE to schools. So as we received additional masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, and cleaning products and sanitizing products, getting those to the schools. We also had a makeshift distribution site set up at La Plata High School when we first went through our first wave of distributing instructional materials. So that happened over the weekend. We designated La Plata as the area we're going to use, their cafeteria, their lobby. We had athletic directors show up. We had an instructional content specialist from central office show up, and along with folks from the transportation department to sort and organize these things that were delivered from the printing company and then to get them out to the instructional distribution site. So April Murphy and her staff have worked nonstop since this crisis has begun, and they continue to work tirelessly throughout this situation. Also like to thank Brad Snow, our Director of Transportation, and the transportation staff. They've been delivering instructional materials to schools. They've also been delivering PPE to schools as needed, particularly to the mill sites, instructional sites. So the folks there had masks and gloves to when they're dealing with the public who are coming to receive the lunches and the instructional materials are being distributed. Also, Brad and his staff, particularly Jen Fitzgerald, who's the router, they worked for a week or so to put together routes for the 7 high schools for their staff to go out and deliver the signs that were delivered to the seniors. So imagine North Point High School, and you have close to 400 graduates or whatever that number may be in each one of the 6 other high schools, and coming up and figuring out where they live and how to get those signs. So Brad and his staff put together routes. So when the staff congregated at those schools last Friday, they were given routes and they can go out and follow those routes in an organized manner and be able to take care of getting those signs to those seniors as a show of appreciation for all their efforts and hard work over their 12 years of schooling. Also, Steve Andrews and his folks in planning construction. There's someone in that office, and usually multiple people in that office on a daily basis. So teleworking, work from home, that's really a definition of something they don't understand. They're out in the offices, out on the sites on a daily basis. And these things these projects needed to continue. And we rolled the dice, and I'm not sure how much as I was transitioning from office to office. We rolled the dice with the Henson project and started a decent amount of demolition on that project, getting rid of the sidewalks in front of the building because we were going to be building that new main office area and extending that building outward towards the parking lot. So we, again, rolled the dice on that, had those sidewalks torn up, and it would have been quite an effort to get new sidewalks in place if we were going to be coming back to school on May 15th. So again, I appreciate his staff and the long hours that they put in during this time. And lastly, I'd like to thank Steve Vance and the maintenance staff who still have to go out on evenings when we have a situation arises in a building or have to go out on the weekends. We had an issue with McDonough's well several weeks back, and we had staff out there over the weekend working to get that well back up and get the new pump down into the well and make sure that working with Glenn Belmore, that water was tested and we could begin using that water again. As you know, McDonough is one of our meal distribution sites. So all that went on without any disruption to the meal distribution there. So again, just another example of the great work that goes on behind the scenes with the people I'm fortunate to work with on a daily basis. And then lastly, I'd like to recognize, since some of these ceremonies will not be taking place, at least in the meantime, we had two people, longtime employees in the maintenance department who retired at the beginning of April. Greg Thompson, who was with the school system for over 20 years, who worked with the carpenters and the roofers in those trades. And then another foreman, Larry Budd, who was with the school system for over 30 years and worked with the life safety systems in the schools, also with our vehicle fleet and the maintenance of those vehicles. And then lastly, coordinating and deploying our snow crew when we had inclement weather. So a big thank you for those two for many years of service to the system. And that is it. If you have any questions for us.
Any questions or comments? I would just like to offer our thanks and to you, Mr. Heim, and all of your staff as well for giving 110% throughout this entire process. We do appreciate all that they've done to ensure the safety of our students and our staff. So thanks.
Thank you. They make my job easy.
Sure. All righty. Any other comments or questions? We're good? Thank you. Then we are ready to hear from Crystal Richardson and William Crowder from Food and Nutrition Services.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just want to make sure. Good afternoon, Chairman McGraw, board members, Dr. Hill, and staff. Bill and I are here this afternoon to give you some background and updates regarding the closure meal distribution program that's currently going on in Charles County Public Schools. And Kyle has been kind enough to, while he's getting our slides up, while he's working on that, I also wanted to give a couple thank yous from the Food and Nutrition Services Department. It has been exciting, to say the least. And honestly, the first couple of weeks that we started the meal distributions at the different sites, we could not have done it without all the help from building services. April and her team were amazing, helping us move things, helping us get traffic directed. The principals at many of the meal sites were very hands-on. I think Mrs. Roberts was there at Westlake from day one. The warehouse has since helped us move a lot of food to get it from the schools that are no longer open. Dr. Hill has answered our questions at all hours of the day and night. Again, the maintenance department, keeping all of our equipment running at those sites. The sheriff's department, who have provided officers at each of the sites every day that we're in operation. Student services, safety and security. Amanda Klein in Mr. Heim's office, who we worked with the first 2 weeks doing our the interim instructional packets, making sure we had those every day to distribute, and definitely Charlotte Hilliard and Jackie Fisher in our office, who have been out in the field every day since we started this program 8 weeks ago, running from site to site. And as Sarah said, she's been at work every day. She's kind of our hub to make sure everybody gets paid and make sure all the bills get paid and we get what we need at the sites. We couldn't have done it without any of those people. Okay. All right, if you want to go to the next slide. This is the first 3 slides are just a basic timeline of how the meal distribution sites were set up. They go into a lot of detail if you'd like to review that at some time. But basically, to start out, as we all know, at about 3:30, 4 o'clock on March 12th, we were notified that schools would be closing for 2 weeks. And immediately, we started working on putting in applications. All of the programs we're currently working under have to have applications with MSDE and approval. So we started working on those Thursday evening before the students even got back to school on Friday, and we started working in the schools. You can go to the next one. Monday, March 16th, we opened 8 CCPS schools for meal distribution. Meals, breakfast and lunch were available for any child 18 and under from 11 to 1 at those 8 schools, Monday through Friday. I think when Kyle did a little video for us for our meal distributions, and one of the lines that's been quoted a couple times is, although this looks like the summer program and we're operating out of the summer, under the summer program umbrella, it's very, very different. We've never, in the 15 years I've been here, done curbside distribution. And it usually takes us about 3 months to get ready for our summer food service. And we turn this around in about 72 hours this time. We added supper and snacks to the breakfast and lunch on Tuesday, the second day of service. And then on Monday, March 23rd, we started with our total no contact meal service. This was something that we worked on with the health department as far as getting all of our standard operating procedures in place and making it so it was the safest way to get meals to our customers and for our staff. On Tuesday, March 24th, J.C. Parks and Dr. Samuel Mudd Elementary Schools were opened. And on Wednesday, Dr. Higdon Elementary School opened. So as of March 25th, we had 11 meal distribution sites. And one of the other dates that I like to keep in mind is on Friday, April 10th, we got to the point where we had served over 100,000 meals in 20 days. It was a lot of meals, and just to give you kind of an idea, that 100,000 meals served in 20 days surpassed the last 5 summers combined. So the last 5 years of summer meal service, we had done about 106,000 meals, and as of 20 days with this meal service, we had surpassed 100,000 meals. The meals that we're serving now are served through USDA programs administered by MSDE. The breakfast and lunch that are provided at the schools are provided through the Summer Food Service Program, which is what we use for our Lunch on Us programs during the summer. The supper and snack that we're providing are actually provided through the Child and Adult Care Food Program for at-risk meals. We use this program in the schools during the school year at our middle schools, where we serve the Parks and Rec program that is it's not aftercare, but they're after-school activities. We provide suppers for those students that stay with Parks and Rec. We also use this program to provide suppers for our eligible high schools. Lackey, Westlake, St. Charles, Tombstone all take part in this program where they have suppers for the students that are there for athletics, academics, and arts after school.
It's important to note here that, I'm sorry, it's important to note here that all these programs are operating under multiple waivers. What they would normally operate during the school year and during the summer, all those rules have been waived so that we can provide multiple meals at the same time, and they don't have to stay on the premise. They can pick them up and go. Those waivers will expire at some point. Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, both of these programs, both the SFSP and the CACFP programs, like many of our federal government programs, they actually both have different guidelines and different rules. So we're kind of using both of the guidelines to direct our programs. But all of the guidelines must be followed to ensure that the programs are reimbursed and that we're able to continue to use the programs. At this point, the only meals that are not being reimbursed are the suppers and snacks that are served at J.C. Parks and Higdon Elementary School. CACFP requires a 50% farms rate for eligibility, and so the Food and Nutrition Services Department is absorbing the costs for the suppers and snacks served at those two sites. Next slide, please. As Bill said, although we're using both of those programs, we're using quite a few waivers. There's 4 major waivers that are allowing us to serve in the style we're serving now. The first one that passed was the allowing of non-congregate feeding. I know probably when we've talked about the summer program, one of the biggest probably sticking points for a lot of our participation is that the students are required to stay there and eat the meal on site. USDA waived that and allowed for non-congregate feeding, so that's why we're allowing them to take the meals and leave site. The second one was the mealtime flexibility. For summer food service program, there's a 3-hour mandatory block between breakfast and lunch. They waived that, and that's why we're allowed to give them their breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack all at the same time. The third waiver that was passed was the pickup by parents or guardians. This waiver allows a parent or guardian with proof of a child. We are asking for either their ID card. We have a lot of them that pull up on Parent View on their phone, but they have to have some sort of documentation showing that the meal is for a child 18 and under. And the last was Maryland was granted the ability to just adjust eligibility levels where we were able to claim, and that was only for the summer food service program. So that waiver allowed us to get reimbursement for J.C. Parks and Higdon for their breakfast and lunch. And as Bill said, all of these waivers are due to expire June 30th unless they're extended. They've been extended up to June 30th, but we are waiting for further guidance from MSDE as to whether they'll be waived going forward.
So we've been doing this now. We've been doing this now for about 8 weeks, and you can see from the chart that's up, it started off slowly and quickly ramped up to 32, 33,000. Those 2 weeks reflect the first distribution of educational packets. So there was kind of the first week and the Monday of the following week, those numbers jump. But we seem to have stabilized out somewhere in the 26.5 to 27.5 range. Our numbers for the current week our last week ended at 26.3. So that's pretty much where we're at. That's what we expect to happen. We have no idea what's going to happen once the school year actually shuts down and MSDE tells us what we're allowed to do. Next slide. Kyle, thank you. The pictures are just of various staff. Most of the places are staff with our managers. They represent most of our schools. It is assistant managers, contracted workers, hourly workers. The 2 pictures at the bottom of this slide that show the CCPS van and the person loading stuff into the trunk, and the picture to the right of it are both the Meals on Wheels. We are the prime contractor. for the Meals on Wheels program for the county. And so that has continued to run. They're not feeding in senior centers, but we're still providing about 250 meals to senior citizens throughout the county on a daily basis. Next, please. And there, this is just some shots of some of the different sites. The weather hasn't cooperated a lot in the last 8 weeks. It's been unseasonably cool and then unseasonably wet. And we had some signs made up so people knew there were meals. And as you can see, the pop-up tents are all over the place. So, and that's really what Crystal and I have. We don't know what things are going to look like when this is all over, but we will endeavor to do whatever we can for the kids in the system. One of the things that's gone on here and was not in the slides was, as part of the CARES Act, there's a PEBT benefit, which is a pandemic electronic benefit. And so anyone that has free or reduced students in the system, the Office of Accountability is working on a file to transfer to the state, will get EBT benefits equal to the amount that we would have been reimbursed if the student had eaten breakfast and lunch every day in the month. It amounts to about $112 per student per month. Friday, May 1st, the governor proclaimed that School Lunch Hero Day. You can see one of our employees there is wearing the cape. I'm not sure who that is. I don't know through the mask, but these people are amazing for what they're doing and the risks they're willing to take with the constant contact. Unfortunately, like the educational side of the house, we didn't find a way to telefeed people. So, you know, we just had to do it the old-fashioned way with physical contact. That's it. If there's any questions, we'll be glad to answer them.
Questions? Well, you may not have been able to do it telepath over the airways, but you certainly did a monumental job. Thank you very much for the report, because I think it was important for our community to understand the strict guidelines that you have been operating under, and as well as the fact that these were there were waivers in place that allowed us to be able to do all that you did. So just as I have mentioned earlier, we are extremely grateful to each and every one of our workers, you for your leadership, and to our workers that have been out there on the front lines. Any of the sites that I've driven by, they're all healthy and they're always have a smile on their face. So thank you all very much. Any other questions? Any other comments? Mr. Hancock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to say, so I think we've gone through most of everything. Crystal and Bill, that's a great job, and everyone that's involved in that. And then this meeting so far has been so good because I think it's given the public a chance to see everything that goes on behind the scenes. And when you sit back and watch everything that goes into making this system run, it's amazing. So everyone, I just want to personally thank everyone from the top down for everything that has been going on in such a short notice, and to see everything happen, it's kind of breathtaking. So thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, you're next. Or are you? There you are.
Yes. I am presenting the request for a 5-day waiver. As you know, state law requires students to attend schools for at least 180 school days each year. The State Board of Education recognized, because of the state of emergency declared by the governor, that 180 days needed to be reduced, and they granted the authority to the state superintendent to grant any local school system requesting a 5-day waiver for a 5-day waiver out of that 180 days. So if the 5-day waiver is granted, we would have 175 days of school. The superintendent is asking the board to authorize the request for the 5-day waiver from the state superintendent on behalf of the school system. A letter that would be sent the draft version of that is on board docs. Mrs. McGraw, I believe you're on mute.
I am, sorry. Have all board members have an opportunity to read the letter? Where's Miss Abel? I miss Miss Abel.
Yes, I have reviewed it.
Okay, I don't see you. I still don't see you, but.
You have to
okay.
scroll to the right or the left.
Okay. So can we take action on that now, Mr. Schwartz? Or do you want us to wait?
Yes. No, we can vote now.
All right. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the letter to be sent to the to the state superintendent regarding the 5-day waiver.
It's Mr. Lucas, a motion to approve.
Okay, I need a second.
Brown.
Okay, Lucas. Discussion? Okay, I'm going to take a roll call vote. Mrs. Abel?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Battle Lockhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas? I would say yes. Miss Wilson?
Yes.
McGraw votes yes. Student opinion?
Yes.
All right, thanks. All right, the motion carries. When would we expect that the letter would be sent?
We will send the letter today.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
And Mrs. McGraw, if I could, there's an item I'd like to discuss that's not on the agenda that we needed to add after action by the governor. As you may have heard and read, the governor has vetoed the Blueprint for Maryland's Future Act, which was the Kerwin bill. The governor vetoed that bill because he said of the costs of the plan. As we know, with the current situation financially in the state and nation, the governor's concerned that there was not the funding there to support moving forward with Kerwin. This does not affect the FY 2021 funding. As you may know, that funding was already locked in previously before the session started. So we should be expecting the Kerwin funding to be coming forward for FY 2021. However, there's always a however when it comes to funding, that could change. And what could change is that the state could determine that there's not enough sufficient revenues to support that funding and vote not to provide that funding. That is something we're not expecting to happen, but could happen. And if it happens, we would have to deal with some of the legal consequences at that time, whether that's even a possibility. But what's more likely going to happen is that the General Assembly, when they reconvene in January, will revisit Kerwin in one of two ways. Either they will override the governor's veto, or they will pass Kerwin in another form. In some fashion, however, it's recognized that they're going to have to revisit Kerwin simply because the revenues already aren't going to be there to support Kerwin moving forward beyond FY 2021. Another twist on all of this is the effect of another bill that passed in Annapolis this past year, the Built to Learn Act, which was the $2.2 billion school construction program that the General Assembly passed this past session. There was a provision in that bill that said that that bill would only take effect if the Kerwin bill takes effect. So because the governor has vetoed Kerwin, that automatically means that the Built to Learn Act will not go forward. Again, the governor did not directly veto the Built to Learn Act, but it doesn't go forward because Kerwin was vetoed. So again, that's going to be something we'll have to revisit next session when the General Assembly revisits Kerwin. If they override the veto and pass Kerwin, then the Built to Learn Act is reinstated. If they don't do that, then they'll have to revisit the Built to Learn Act in another manner. And the last thing I'm going to mention about all this is that there is still a possibility that there'll be a special session that the General Assembly will reconvene prior to January to revisit both Kerwin, the Built to Learn Act, and also other bills that the governor has vetoed. We're not expecting that to happen only because it'd be difficult in this current situation for the General Assembly to reconvene in person. So they may be waiting until January to do that, but that is still a possibility as well. So I just want to make sure the board is up to date on those two matters, and I can answer any questions if there are any.
Wow. Questions? Comments? Not good news right now, but none? Okay, then. If there aren't, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Very informative. We'll go to unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to new business. And Mr. Schwartz?
As you may know, Board Policy 8220 states that if the board suspends any policy, then the board would have to revisit at each subsequent board meeting that policy suspension until either the suspension is lifted or the policy is amended or eliminated. So therefore, all of the policies we suspended last month are coming back again this month and will continue to come back each subsequent board meeting until, again, the policy suspension is either lifted or the policy is amended or eliminated. So the superintendent is recommending that all of the policies that were suspended last month, that the suspension continue this month. So we would need an action by the board to do that.
All righty. Do I have a motion?
So moved. This is Jennifer Abel.
Second, this is Liz Brown.
Okay, this is Abel. Write that down, and Ms. Brown. Okay. Discussion? Okay, vote.
Now, Mr. Lucas, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. So we talked about policy 6431.
Yes, I was going to bring that up afterwards, but go ahead.
Well, if you want to start.
No, I was going to bring that up as a vote after this one, but go right ahead. Give me your comments.
So,
I'm sorry.
Well, that policy's in our packet of board policies to suspend, correct?
Okay.
Correct.
Was that, and I'm sorry, was that there last month as well, Mr. Schwartz?
No.
No, that's new, right?
Yeah, it's
I guess my discussion with regard to that, and the language in there is verbatim from the policy. But there's two different components to that, right? There's an overall grade point average, and there's also not receiving an F as a letter grade. So if Ms. Holstein could just briefly elaborate on how we are assigning grades for the fourth quarter.
And if I could just jump in just for a second to clarify, policy 6431 was in the packet last month for suspension. And again, what we're suspending and what we're recommending for suspension is just the provision that students would be eligible for the fall, even if they don't meet the fourth quarter grade point average the prior year. So just to clarify what is being suspended, not the whole policy, just that provision of it. And that was in the packet last month.
Okay. I thought that was newly added, so thank you for that clarification.
So is it being suspended or is it just being amended?
No, it should be suspended. We're not amending it. We're just suspending it for the time being.
Okay.
Mr. Lucas, was your question adequately answered?
So could Ms. Holstein just briefly go over how we're assigning grades for the fourth quarter?
Sure. So for fourth quarter, students will either receive a pass, an incomplete, based on what they complete during the fourth quarter. So if students are connected and participating in distance learning, they will receive a P or pass on their fourth quarter grade. If they're not participating or have not participated sufficiently, they will get an I As we shared, though, we need the community to understand that until we're given directions on how to turn in the packets, some students may receive an I for the fourth quarter, and once we can retrieve the packets, that I may change to a P. For seniors, we're asking that they take a picture on their cell phones and send that in to their administrator so that they can verify that they are indeed completing the work. So fourth quarter grades will be either a P or an I.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I guess my only concern is that for students that really chose to not try to do anything, and I emphasize chose on that because I understand we have some challenges in certain areas. I don't know how the board would feel about having those students eligible in the fall. I mean, in my mind, an I for some segment of the student population might be equivalent to receiving an F. Not all the time, but the grade point average I understand, and I'm okay with that. But if a student didn't show any effort in the fourth quarter, and do we really want to have that student eligible for extracurricular activities in the next school year? And I'm certainly willing to hear other opinions on that.
Well, if they didn't show any effort whatsoever, they're getting an I or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
Jennifer,
would an I make them eligible?
Well, the policy would be suspended, so it wouldn't matter.
Okay.
But to Ms. Holt, I'm sorry, Ms. McGraw.
That's
To Ms.
all right.
Holstein's point, to Ms. Holstein's point, though, just because all this is so new, there might be some kids that initially would get an I, right? But subsequently that could be changed, and we certainly don't want to penalize those students in any way.
Right.
I would just feel more comfortable if there was some way to differentiate for students who really didn't put any effort. You know, again, it's kind of been the board's policy forever. If you don't put in any effort, then doing extracurricular activities is something that perhaps is secondary. So I would just like to see some safeguard in there if it's possible. I understand you're trying to get it all out so it's on the report cards and that there's no questions, people can plan for it. And maybe Mr. Heim, what he said earlier, we couldn't quite understand, and maybe he was trying to comment on that, and he can make a mad dash to Mr. Andrews' office.
I'm going to go to Ms. Abel and then Mr. Hancock. Ms. Abel?
Yes, I have a recommendation. I think that we should vote on the motion that is on the table, which is the vote to just suspend all of these policies for the next 30 days. And then move on to individualize this policy 6431 and deal with that, and defer to Mr. Schwartz for the proper wording to reflect our wishes. And with that, I'd like to call for the vote.
Okay. And that was my intent.
David had his hand up.
Mr. Hancock, I saw your hand.
Oh, no, but I can, if I tend to agree with Mr. Lucas, and I like where Mrs. Abel's going with this, so I can add comment if we do decide to revisit this.
Well, hold your comment because that will be the next order of business. All right.
Yep, thank you.
So the vote is on the floor to suspend, to continue the suspension of policies that were reviewed with us last month, excluding the recommendation for 6431. I just added that so that everybody is understanding that we're going to discuss that next.
Second.
Oh, it was.
Okay.
It's already moved and seconded. So I'm going to take a vote. Okay. So Mrs. Abel?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Battle Lockhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas,
Yes.
Miss Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. McGraw. Yes. Okay. Is there a student opinion?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so now let's discuss 6431. And Mrs. Abel, I see your hand. Go
I would
ahead.
like to defer to Mr. Swartz for the proper wording for what Mr. Lucas had discussed.
Okay. And I would like to hear what Mr. Hancock had to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do tend to agree with Mr. Lucas. And I guess if there's a way, my personal opinion would be if we could utilize third quarter grades and go off of that, since we were up until a week shy of third quarter. Now, I do understand this is policy and that we probably can't just create a policy for the short term to do that. But if there was a way that we could amend something under these circumstances, I do think that we have to have some sort of standards moving into next year. And that's what I wanted to bring up.
So Mrs. Holstein, would decision be too late in June? If we ask Mr. Schwartz to word this, come up with the wording for us, we would have to decide that in June.
That would be fine. The only thing that we could not do is let students know on their report card whether they are eligible or not. Okay.
I see.
And
Okay.
this is a reminder, we're just recommending just for the first quarter, if we're able to. And I understand the board's concern about students not putting any effort, but that's very hard to judge that, because our students are in so many different situations where they have family members that are healthcare workers, that they have family members that are ill. And so it's very hard to say that this student, because they didn't wish to complete the activities, just chose not to. There's just so many different situations that I think that we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about looking at whether or not a student participated in distance learning in fourth quarter. There's just so many different home situations that I think we have to be careful when we make those determinations.
Okay.
But as Mr. Hancock said, if it's the wish of the board, we could use the average of the first semester and the third quarter.
So,
Madam Chair, if I could just tie into what Ms. Holstein said, I tend to agree with everything you said about the fourth quarter. I think it would be a shame to hold anybody accountable for anything that happened during the fourth quarter, just because of so many different circumstances. But we do have 3 quarters of in-school education that we can base our opinion or our decision off of.
okay. Is it because consensus of the board to ask Mr. Schwartz to draft language for us? Or would we like to make a vote today? Mrs. Abel?
Mrs. McGraw.
Yes, Mr. Hancock, did you need to say something before I go?
I was going to say something. This is Eric. If I can just
Go ahead,
make a
Eric.
suggestion. Let me make a suggestion. The board is not looking to change its policy. It's not voting on a policy change. We're not looking to do that this summer. All we were trying to figure out is what to do for the fall. If policy 6431 is suspended, as we have been recommending and was voted on by the board last month, if we continue that suspension, what the impact is that the superintendent would then determine eligibility, and the superintendent can do that based on the input I think I'm hearing from the board currently, that we would base that determination on the first 3 quarters of the year. And if we do that, then we can act now, meaning that we can have the report cards reflect the eligibility rather than waiting until June in which case it would not be reflected on the report cards. So if the board is interested in that decision, in that action, then the superintendent can certainly take that and move forward with language of what that means, and we can report back to the board about that, but we can move forward with that for the report carding.
Okay, that's Mrs. Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. You took the words right out of my mouth. That's what my suggestion was going to be. So if the board has a consensus that we want to move in this direction, just leave it to the superintendent to address it in rules.
All right. Is there a consensus to allow the superintendent? Are you getting feedback from me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it the consensus of the board to allow the superintendent to make that determination? I will ask. Mrs. Abel?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Lockhart?
Yes.
Hancock?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
And McGraw, it is. Therefore, Dr. Hill can move forward and make that determination about eligibility.
Thank you, Mrs. McGraw. One question for clarity. Are we averaging first semester and third quarter or just taking third quarter grade? I heard both.
I thought it was all three.
Okay, that's fine.
And Dewan has his hand up.
Where's Dewan? Okay, thank you, Ms. Lockhart. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just like give this recommendation now since I won't be here next month when it's being voted on. But I'd probably just recommend not doing that and just letting students start with a clean slate for first quarter, only because I think it would be unfair to penalize students that are utilizing this fourth quarter to change their eligibility around, especially since we did offer the half a quality point incentive for students. I think using that average from the first 3 quarters in their semester grade could be detrimental for some students that maybe for that final, maybe they weren't eligible, but with the quality point, they would be eligible because they were working really hard during first quarter. So I would probably not advise to do that.
Just one more piece of information. I asked Mr. Jones to check with Steve Lee to check what other counties were doing. And Mr. Jones, as far as you know, all other counties are waiving eligibility for the fall.
Many of the other counties are waiving eligibility for the fall for the first quarter, at least to start with. Some of the others are using the second semester final grade, whatever that may be, whatever, however they've decided to determine that final semester grade. Some of them are using that to determine eligibility, but many of them are completely waiving it altogether for the beginning of the year in the fall.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, then. Do we have any future agenda items? Mr. Lucas?
You're echoing really bad. Is it just me that hears that?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're echoing. I hear you as well.
I was just going to say, Ms. McGraw, I believe we need to have a work session to discuss the budget.
Need a work session?
If I'm not mistaken, the commissioners are going to vote next week. At least that was the last update we heard. And so it would behoove us to have a very detailed discussion, so we're prepared at our June board meeting.
Okay. Are you suggesting we have a work session after the vote?
But it has to be after the vote, yeah.
It's the 19th.
And so our normal work session falls on Memorial Day, which is may or may not make a difference given our current situation. So I would just like to get a date for that work session. And also encourage all our board members to look at the complete budget book. Depending on what happens with the commissioners, there might be a lot to discuss.
I'm looking at the calendar.
I would suggest the 27th, which is a Wednesday.
Could we make that tentative date? I'd like to make
Sure.
that a tentative date. And
Sure.
then make it firm after we hear what the result is of the budget.
That's fair. Either way, I think we need to have a meeting prior to our June board meeting.
Okay, then I will get back to the board on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGraw.
Sure. And the
Ms.
other
McGraw,
feature
can you
of
make it,
agenda
this is Mrs. Abel. Can you take a consensus if that date is good with all board members?
Sure, I wasn't choosing a particular date, but we can do that now. If we need to have a board session, work session, let's see, I'm going to propose May the 27th, so Wednesday evening. Mrs. Abel, is that acceptable?
Yes.
Ms. Brown? Is that acceptable?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Donna Lockhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
And Ms. McGraw is okay with that as well. Okay, thank you, Ms. Abel. Any other future agenda items? None? Okay, then we'll move forward with action items. The first are the minutes of the April 21st meeting. I need a motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Mrs. Abel moved. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept and move the minutes of the April 21st meeting. Mrs. Abel, vote.
Yes.
Mrs. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Battle Lockhart.
Yes.
Mr. Hancock.
Yes.
Mr. Lucas.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McGraw, yes. The next action item are personnel actions proposed by the superintendent today.
Motion
So-
to accept.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Abel,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Lockhart,
Abstain.
okay, Mr. Hancock,
Abstain.
Mr. Lucas,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
and McGraw is yes. There were no public comments submitted for this meeting. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And the second was?
Ms. Brown.
Ms. Brown, okay. Mrs. Abel,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Lockhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hancock,
Yes.
Mr. Lucas,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
and McGraw, yes. I'd just like to say the meeting is adjourned. And thank you all very much for your participation. And congratulations and good luck, Jawan.
Good luck, Dewan.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you all very much.